This video contains fictional depictions of blood and gore as well as major spoilers for Quake 4, obviously. Welcome to the Quirks of German X, the series where we take a look at the German ports of video games. This includes things like censorship, voice acting, translations, and other quirky changes. Today's video is about one of its oldest and most abandoned properties, Quake 4. But we skipped a few titles, didn't we? So here's a lightning round to look at all of them. Quake 1, indexed until 2011. Quake 2, indexed until 2019. Quake 3, received minor graphical changes and cut certain characters, I'm just kidding, indexed until 2013. And Quake 4, also indexed, except they also released a cut version for 16 years and older, making it the first title that was actually playable over here in years. Well, playable is highly debatable. First I tried getting it on Steam and then I went on GOG, but Afterwards I just went out and bought the actual disc, which of course didn't even boot up at first. Even after downloading a patch for it, I had to fiddle with config files so it actually ran in my resolution. I don't know why playing the worst version of the game is so difficult, but we got there in the end. So let's take a look at German Quake 4. As always, if you enjoy the video, please consider subscribing or donating to my Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can see new videos 1 week earlier than everybody else. But enough of that, let's begin with the voice acting. Our first character is this Marine who is voiced by—
you maggots, haul ass or die!
Hold on, that ain't right. Maybe I got the wrong version of the game. No, this is the actual disc in German. I need to check something. Huh, what do you know? They didn't even dub it. Oh man, this makes my job a million times easier. Alright, then let's head right into the part that everyone is here for anyway, the censorship. As a disclaimer, I use Schnittbericht's article on the game as a reference. You should look at it yourself afterwards, link is below. Don't worry, there's also pictures. Anyway, let me just play the intro cinematic so you get the idea of what the censorship in this game is like. Now, if you didn't know, it's actually meant to look like this. Yeah, kind of a difference, right? Every single drop of blood has just been wiped away completely. And body parts? Forget about it, because the game certainly did. This has the negative side effect of all the Strogg bases looking far too clean for their own good. These are creatures that hack up humans while they're alive to turn them into weird machine flesh hybrids, but their facilities are spotless. This is most evident in the human processing plant chapters. Not all of the blood is gone like on the conveyor belts, but most of it is. I think they felt like they couldn't scrub away all of it without making this section of the game completely pointless, so some was also turned into a green or brown sludge. But you don't wade through organs or walk over piles of corpses, making this area feel more like a waste processing plant. In fact, decorative gore like the tortured and maimed humans were taken out as well, including the ones that are being processed. So at some point, a pair of Strogg doctors were operating on nothing. The Strogg quote technology, that is the aforementioned melding of metal and flesh, also forgoes the latter part. This means that the health stations are just metal balls, for instance. Hilariously, the Marines act like it's all still there, making it more seem like they're afraid of machinery in general.
Just when I think the Strogg can't sink any lower, I see shit like this. Something about that gives me the creeps. Don't touch it.
Technology!
It's also kind of embarrassing when the game tries to build suspense or even scare the player with a creepy sting, while absolutely nothing is happening on screen. Surprisingly, there are still a couple sections where you walk past exposed intestines and other pieces of flesh, including a part where you torture giant still beating heart with electricity. In fact, the Strogg keep their grisly designs with metal and wires digging into their bleeding skin. However, they don't bleed during combat and only emit sparks. Still, they forgot to remove the blood of this fella here. Their corpses also fade by default, meaning they didn't need to change anything there. I also thought they didn't get gypped either, but turns out this was the case in the original too. Honestly, that's lame. How can you have a railgun or a BFG type weapon and not turn enemies into a fine mist? But the final boss doesn't gyp here either, making for a very anticlimactic ending. Come on, at least add an explosion effect or something. The only models that were changed are the ones of the zombies, who are no longer fleshy and more like a Terminator endoskeleton. This is probably because you can still cut them in half, with the upper torso crawling on the floor afterwards. The reason for all these changes is likely that the Strogg are humanoid in appearance, with violence against humans being extremely frowned upon in Germany. And I think that's also why the Marines got hit the hardest. You will not find a single human corpse in the game that is not in a pristine condition. This makes it extremely weird when others talk about how mangled they are while they look completely fine.
That door is the exit out, but we can't get through the security scanner.
Yeah, it fried Private Johnson when he tried to go through.
So fine in fact that I even mistook a living person for a corpse at one point. Imagine your buddy bleeding out on the floor next to you and you just run past them because you think they're already gone. Well, I say that, but they don't even seem to bleed. At all. In fact, they're completely impervious to any and all kind of damage. Like this Marine who got hit in the face with a laser and just flopped to the floor like a Half-Life 2 ragdoll. Another one stood out for a different reason, as he's the only one in the entire game to receive a unique face texture. A very interesting one at that. What the hell, Steve? You can't do that! Supposedly, it's meant to look like metal, but it didn't show up right at all. And this actually makes me think that the Marines, just like in Half-Life, were originally all meant to be robots, with this one being a leftover. Though, having to fight alongside a squad donning blackface would have made me root for the Strogg more than anything. But even more ridiculous than that is when the blood and gore weren't removed, but simply obscured. Like this cutscene where a soldier gets sliced by a Strogg doctor. In the German version, however, you stare very intensely at a metal cube instead. The death cutscene of the big fatso is even more fascinating. In the original, he gets a needle shoved down his throat, which causes his stomach to burst open. Not only is it gruesome, but it shows that the floor melted from the stomach acid. In the German version, he's actually able to fight it off and it sprays a bit of fluid over him. Then the screen fades to black, implying he's getting horrifically disfigured off screen. But once it fades back in, not only is he fine, he's still alive. I mean, he also still moves in the original, but he just looks a bit tuckered out here. However, I know exactly what you're thinking. You're wondering what they did to that cutscene. Oh, you know the one. Quake 4's main lasting legacy. Well, I'll hit you with a bit of trivia. Did you know the German version of the game is roughly 5 minutes shorter? Yep, it's gone. Cut out entirely. You get captured by the Strogg and wake up in a glass tank immediately afterwards. I wouldn't even have noticed anything was off if I couldn't see myself in the mirror. I mean, it's good they kept your ugly transformation with your skin stretched over a metal frame. And the implication of what happened might be horrifying in itself, but come on. Seeing it happen to your own body in first person is a million times more effective. The fact you're forced to watch the guy in front of you get tortured, knowing it's going to happen to you next, and then having that nightmare come true, it makes you feel utterly helpless. Almost nobody has done anything like that since, except for maybe Wolfenstein. I could write a whole essay on this scene alone, it really is that amazing. It shows how brutal and uncaring the Strogg are and how much you need to stop them. Because if you don't, everyone will have to go through something like that. If you just cut it out, then what are the Strogg really? Just another random alien life form that wants to conquer Earth, no different to the Combine. I mean, overall, the game's censorship is whatever. The gameplay wasn't that violent to begin with, and you can still tell when you're hitting enemies. But without any of the gore, what's the point? Quake 4 is about merging flesh with machine, corrupting the pure with cold steel, to the point where guts and wires are indistinguishable from one another. It's almost fetishistic in how it portrays its body horror. Not showing any of that is like having a Doom game where you don't go to hell. Watching gameplay of the uncensored version, it made me realize that it was meant to be a horror game, where the player gets creeped and weirded out constantly. And that was just not the case here. It feels more like a generic space shooter with no lasting impact, like a Michael Bay movie. However, despite all of this, I find it fascinating how random German censorship can get. You have the expected classics like enemies being robots and missing blood. But then you also have characters commenting on missing gore, cutscenes being altered in hilarious ways, or even the fact that one of the Strogs you were meant to kill is still alive. And you also get unique things like Blackface Steve, which they really didn't need to do but did anyway. They always screw up in at least one aspect, and that's exactly what I'm here for. Still wouldn't replay it for any reason though. It doesn't even have interesting voice acting. And that's precisely why I'll place it in the low effort, low enjoyment corner on the scale of German ports. But now I really want to play Soldier of Fortune to see how they messed that one up. Let me know if you'd like to see that. And please also let me know what you thought about German Quake 4. Maybe you even liked it. No you don't. Just tell me what you thought was worst. And if you want to support me, then please do that by leaving a like, subscribing, and even by donating directly to my Patreon. Anything is appreciated. But for now, thank you very much for watching, have a wonderful day, and goodbye.